Shedeur Sanders locked in. I mean big time locked in. Day 4 of the Cleveland Browns training camp. Shedeur Sanders once again dominated. He took all first team reps. He threw for 4 touchdowns today. 4 TDs today. Wow. Deshawn Watson, 3 interceptions. Yeah, 3 interceptions with no pass on. What do you expect each one of these quarterbacks to do when the pads come on?
He was 4th string, practice squad numbers, a name nobody wanted on their draft board. And 4 days into training camp, he's the one making the entire building stop and stare. Day 4 of Cleveland Browns training camp, and something shifted, something that felt different from every other day before it. Shedeur Sanders didn't just have a good practice, he had the kind of practice that makes veteran reporters put their phones down and actually watch. 4 touchdowns, first team reps, start to finish. And on the other side of the field, Deshawn Watson was throwing the ball to the wrong colored jersey. 3 interceptions, no touchdowns, not one. 2 quarterbacks, same field, same drills, completely different stories being written in real time. This is the story of a rookie who was never supposed to be here, fighting for a job that everybody assumed already belonged to someone else. And on day 4, the gap between assumption and reality started to look a lot wider than anybody in Cleveland wanted to admit. Let's rewind for a second, because to understand why day 4 mattered so much, you have to understand what Shedeur Sanders has been carrying since April. He fell, 5th round. Team after team passed on him, some more than once, and every pass was a headline. Every headline was a wound. The kid who dominated college football, who had NFL bloodlines running through him, sat in a room on draft night and watched his name disappear further and further down the board, while cameras filmed his face doing everything it could not to break. That's not just draft disappointment. That's public humiliation, live on national television for hours. Think about that for a second. Most people never have to relive their worst professional moment on a loop, replayed by talk shows and podcasts for weeks afterwards. He did, over and over, clip after clip, and every one of those clips became ammunition for people who had already decided his story before it even started. There's a certain kind of pain that comes from being misjudged in public, not privately doubted, not quietly overlooked, but broadcast, dissected, and mocked on a stage the whole country was watching. That's the kind of pain that either hardens a person into bitterness or forges something else entirely, something quieter, something more dangerous to anyone who doubted him.
About Shedeur Sanders will elevate. He's going to continue to climb that ladder. He's going to get better and better and better. The question is, what is Deshawn Watson going to do? I don't know what the head coach, Todd Monken, is looking for, but Shedeur Sanders is putting on a display to prove he should be QB1 and should be getting all first team reps.
And then he lands in Cleveland, a franchise that has been searching for a franchise quarterback since before some of these players were born, a city that has adopted quarterbacks and buried quarterbacks in equal measure. He didn't walk into a clean slate, he walked into a graveyard of expectations, standing behind a starter who signed one of the richest contracts in franchise history, a contract that's already looking like a burden nobody quite knows how to carry. That's the pressure. That's the room Shedeur Sanders walked into. Not just make the roster, not just impress the coaches, justify a legacy while replacing a guy who's still getting paid like the guy who should be starting. And through all of it, the media never let up. Every rep got dissected. Every incompletion turned into a headline questioning whether the arm strength was really there, whether the accuracy translates, whether this was just a name carrying a legacy that the game itself hadn't caught up to yet. Analysts picked apart his 5th round grade like it was gospel. Fans argued in comment sections about whether he even deserved to be QB2, let alone QB1. Local radio spent entire segments debating his footwork, his release, his ceiling, as if a handful of spring reps could tell you everything about a man's career before it even began. You know that feeling when everyone's already decided your ceiling before you've had a real chance to show them your floor? That's what Shedeur Sanders has been living in since April. But here's the thing about criticism. It either breaks you or it becomes fuel. And what's happening in Cleveland right now looks a lot more like fuel. Because when Shedeur talked about this training camp, the tone wasn't defensive, it wasn't bitter, it was almost peaceful. He talked about finding rhythm, about the feeling when your reads are clean, when your feet are in the right spot before the ball even leaves your hand, when a play just feels right before the result even shows up on the stat sheet. That's not something you fake. That's something you find after hours nobody sees, reps nobody claps for, film sessions that happen long after the cameras go home. He's not chasing a job. He's chasing a feeling. And on day 4, that feeling showed up in the box score for everybody to see. 13 of 22, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Compare that to Deshawn Watson's day, 12 of 19, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And it wasn't just one bad day for Watson. People close to the building have started counting. Some reports have him sitting around 6 interceptions through the first week of camp alone. Now, pump the brakes for a second, because there are no pads on yet. This is still shorts and helmets. This is still scripted install period, not real football violence. But numbers like that, especially for a quarterback who's already dealing with lingering shoulder questions, start conversations that a franchise really doesn't want to be having in August. Because it's not just about interceptions, it's about a bigger question hanging over that quarterback room, one nobody in that building wants to say out loud yet. If the guy who signed the massive contract can't stay clean in shorts and helmets, what happens when the pads come on? What happens when real pressure, real bodies, real chaos enters the picture?
I'm truly excited for this year that the attitude about everybody in the building, like we like the hard coach and we like all that stuff because we know it's coming from a place of wanting us to be great, wanting us to, everybody's goal is aligned here. That's why we don't have the petty quarterback battles internally of that. That's not up to us. It's up to, whoever the coach is thinking, whoever put their best foot forward. You know what I love now? I love being in rhythm and having timing. So what I mean by rhythm and timing is if it's a 5-step drop.
There's a version of this story where none of this matters, where Watson turns it around the second the pads go on, where his experience and his arm talent take back control the way everybody assumed it would from day 1. But there's another version, the one slowly gaining momentum inside that building, where a rookie who fell to the 5th round is quietly, patiently making it impossible to ignore him. And Shedeur's numbers aren't happening in a vacuum either. They're happening because of chemistry, real, developing, on-field chemistry with a receiver room that's starting to trust him. Denzel Boston has quickly turned into the name everybody in that building is talking about. Route precision, timing, the kind of connection that looks less like a rookie quarterback guessing and more like 2 players who've studied the same page of the playbook and are now just executing it. It's the kind of connection you can't coach into existence overnight. It has to be built, rep after rep, mistake after mistake, until it becomes instinct. But it wasn't just Boston catching the headlines on day 4. Jeudy hauled in 2 of those touchdowns himself, veteran hands making a young quarterback's job easier, giving him something every rookie passer desperately needs, a security blanket he can trust when the pocket isn't clean. A guy who's been through NFL wars already, who knows how to find soft spots in coverage, who doesn't need the perfect throw to make the perfect play. Then there was the play that had people rewinding their footage. A jet sweep, ball in the hands of a receiver in motion, and the kid just took it to the house. No hesitation, pure speed, turning a simple design into a statement. It's the kind of play that doesn't show up on a quarterback's stat line, but it tells you everything about the offense being built around him. Multiple answers, multiple weapons, and a system designed to make the quarterback's job easier, not harder. This offense is starting to look like it has layers, multiple weapons, multiple answers, and a quarterback who's getting more comfortable finding all of them. And that's exactly what a good coaching staff wants to see this early. Not just a quarterback who can make throws, but a system flexible enough to hide weaknesses and highlight strengths, no matter who ends up under center. But let's talk about the other side of the ball for a second, because this story isn't just about the quarterback room, it's about an entire team quietly building belief in itself. There were real concerns entering this offseason about the Cleveland defense, especially after uncertainty around one of their most dominant players, the kind of concern that makes fans brace for a step back instead of a step forward. But 4 days into camp, that defense has been getting after everybody, including their own quarterbacks. 5 interceptions in a single practice, 3 off Watson, 1 off Sanders, 1 off rookie Dillon Gabriel. A defense that takes the ball away like that, even in shorts, even without real contact, tells you something about speed, about instincts, about a group that refuses to let this offseason narrative define them. Linebacker Quincy Williams, a free agent addition from the Jets, has already started making an impact, bringing an attitude the locker room seems to be feeding off of. He talked about confidence being earned through preparation, about players finally arriving at the level where celebration isn't cocky, it's earned. That's not just a personal philosophy, that's becoming a team identity.
And this team is ready. They locked in, y'all. Listen, Shedeur Sanders should be keeping one. That boy was out there throwing some haymakers. You hear me? One pass again. He threw this ball. And I'm telling you, Denzel Boston will look like the Shedeur Sanders #1 target, y'all. Even though today, Shedeur Sanders threw 2 TDs to Jeudy, as you're seeing right here on the screen. Shedeur Sanders locked in, going through his progression.
There's something powerful about a locker room where the newest additions are already setting the tone, where a guy who wasn't even here last season is already shaping how this team thinks about itself. That's not accidental. That's culture forming in real time. And it's happening at the exact same moment their rookie quarterback is forcing everybody to rethink the depth chart. Add in players like Emerson getting healthy again, like Casey Compson turning heads, like a receiver room finding its rhythm behind a quarterback finding his voice, and you start to see why some people inside that building are whispering something Cleveland fans haven't dared to say out loud in years. This team might actually be good. And if you're just now finding this channel, if this is the first time you're hearing this story unfold in real time, do yourself a favor and hit subscribe, because this Shedeur Sanders story is only getting started, and you don't want to miss where it goes from here. Now here's where it gets real, because everything up to this point, the good practices, the touchdown numbers, the highlight plays, all of that came without pads, no real contact, no real physicality. The offensive line hasn't had to truly protect anybody yet. The defense hasn't truly had to finish a tackle. This is still the appetizer. Pads go on next week, Monday, maybe Tuesday, and that's when this story stops being about scripted reps and starts being about real football. Can the offensive line actually protect Shedeur when defenders are trying to put him on the ground? Can he process reads just as clean when the pressure isn't simulated, when 300-pound bodies are actually crashing through the pocket? That's the real test. Not this week, next week. Because right now, the noise around this quarterback competition is loud, but it's still theoretical. Fans are debating, analysts are speculating, former players and insiders, people who've watched this organization for years, have started talking publicly about why Shedeur Sanders' fit here isn't just about talent, it's about timing, about a long-term plan the front office may already be quietly building around him. But talk is talk. Padded practices don't lie, and that's where Shedeur Sanders is about to get his real answer, and so is everybody watching. What happens if he struggles once real contact begins? Does the story shift back to doubt? Does the media pivot the second adversity shows up? Or does he handle pressure the same way he's handled it all offseason? Calm, focused, chasing that same rhythm he talked about instead of chasing headlines. Because here's what makes this story different from every other quarterback competition talked about across the league right now. This isn't just about stats. This is about a young man who was told publicly, repeatedly, that he wasn't good enough, that his game had holes, that his name carried more weight than his arm did. And instead of letting that swallow him, he's using it as the quiet fire underneath everything he does. You can hear it in the way he talks about rhythm instead of results, about process instead of praise. That's not the mindset of a guy trying to prove people wrong for revenge. That's the mindset of a guy trying to become who he was always supposed to be, regardless of who doubted him along the way. Think about the mental discipline that takes to sit in front of cameras day after day, knowing every answer you give will be dissected, every word turned into a headline, and still choose calm, still choose gratitude over bitterness, still choose rhythm over revenge. That's not something you see in a lot of 20-something-year-olds carrying this much weight on their shoulders.
Pads come on Monday or Tuesday. One day next week, them pads come on. And we really gonna see who is QB1. We really gonna see what this offensive line is capable of doing. Can they run block? Can they protect Shedeur? Because today, well, this whole week, that defense been getting after them. They really have. So when you look at the quarterback tracking for the day, you see Shedeur Sanders, 13.
There's a maturity in that approach that even some of his harshest critics have quietly started to acknowledge. It's easy to talk about resilience. It's much harder to actually live it, day after day, camp after camp, especially when the whole country is waiting for you to slip. And Cleveland, a city that has waited so long, suffered through so many false starts, is starting to feel something they haven't felt in years. Not certainty, not yet, but hope. Real, cautious, quietly growing hope. This city knows heartbreak. It knows what it feels like to believe in a quarterback and watch it fall apart. It knows the names that came before, the ones who were supposed to be the answer, and instead became just another chapter of the same painful story. So this hope isn't naive. It's earned skepticism, slowly giving way to something new, something that feels different this time. Longtime fans who've seen every failed era, every quarterback controversy, every offseason of promises that never turned into anything, they're the hardest to convince. And yet even some of them are starting to lean in, starting to watch the practice reports a little closer, starting to ask, quietly, almost afraid to say it too loud, what if this one's actually different? Because if the pads go on and Shedeur Sanders keeps this rhythm, if the offensive line holds up, if this defense keeps taking the ball away, this AFC North race just got a lot more complicated for everybody else in it. Nobody's crowning him yet. Nobody should. Real football starts next week, and real football has humbled better prospects than this before. The league is full of quarterbacks who looked unstoppable in shorts and helmets, only to disappear the moment real contact entered the equation. That history is exactly why Cleveland isn't ready to celebrate just yet. But right now, 4 days into camp, with 4 touchdowns on the board, and a quarterback room shifting right in front of our eyes, one thing is becoming impossible to ignore. Shedeur Sanders didn't come to Cleveland to sit and wait his turn quietly. He came to take it. And whether the league was ready for that or not, the tape doesn't lie, the box score doesn't lie, and the locker room belief building around him right now, that doesn't lie either. The next few days will tell us if this is the beginning of something special or just a really good week before reality sets back in. Either way, you're not going to want to miss what happens when those pads finally go on. Want to be notified when Claude responds?